Hello and welcome to Soap Goes to the Oscars. This is episode 129, and this is the final movie of the 1942 Oscars, the winner of the Outstanding Motion Picture Award. I'm recording on November 21st, 2025, and I just finished watching the movie. The movie was Mrs. Miniver. This said it was available on Prime when I first looked up these movies, but it was not at this time. So I guess I missed the window there. It was available on Fandango at home, and I had a credit that I just earned from Fandango, the regular Fandango, through buying tickets through the app. So I used that to get the movie for $0. All right. So since this is the final movie of the year, I have some stats. Looking at the days to finish, I started this round on November 2nd, and I finished it on November 21st. So it took me 19 days. So the 1931 to 32 Oscars, there was 8 movies. Next year there was 10, then 11, then 12, and then 10 for 6 years in a row. This year there was 9. So this is out of all those years where there was at least 8 movies, this is the fastest I've watched all the movies. The next closest was 29 days for the 1937 Oscars. And so going with my calculations of how long it's going to take me to finish, I changed my formula. I had it set to round up the number of days between movies. And so it was set to 8 days, and that had me finishing in June of 2026, but by changing it to show the decimals, this is so nerdy. So essentially I've watched one movie every 7.27 days, and that now has me finishing June 18th of 2035 at the current pace. So hopefully we can lower that down a bit. There's 129 movies so far. I've watched 127 because 2 aren't available. That is 20.82% watched. If you include the movies that I had seen before this, which is about 30% of the 610 movies, that's a combined total of 311. So I watched about 51% of the total Best Picture nominees. I've watched 13,671 minutes, which is 227 hours and 51 minutes, or 9.49 days. I have spent a total of $305.20. So average spent per movie is $2.40. Not bad. For this round, my average was $6. No, my average was 74 cents a movie. And I'll get to my actual review later, but my average score for this round is 3.61 rating out of 5. Average so far for the 1940s is 3.3, which is the highest. 1930s was 3.1, 1920s was 3. So my ratings are going up a bit. Okay, enough of all the numbers BS. Mrs. Miniver is a 1942 American romantic war drama film directed by William Wyler, starring Greer Garson and Walter Pidgeon, both of whom starred together in Blossoms in the Dust, which was from the previous Oscar year. Inspired by the 1940 novel Mrs. Miniver by Jan Struther, this shows how the life of an unassuming British housewife in rural England is affected by World War II. Supporting cast includes Teresa Wright, May Whitty, Reginald Owen, Henry Travers, Richard Ney, and Henry Wilcoxon. Mrs. Miniver was a critical and commercial success, becoming the highest grossing film of 1942 and winning 6 Academy Awards. It was the first film centered on World War II to win Best Picture and the first to receive 5 acting nominations. The film ranked 40th on the American Film Institute's list of most inspirational movies. In 2009, the film was selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry. A sequel, The Miniver Story, in 1950, was made with Greer Garson and Walter Pidgeon reprising their roles. Produced by Sidney Franklin, cinematography Joseph Ruttenberg, edited by Harold F. Kress, music by Herbert Stothart. Production company Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, distributed by Lowe's Inc. Released June 4th, 1942 in Radio City Music Hall, and July 22nd, 1942 in Los Angeles, with a runtime of 133 minutes. The film entered pre-production in the autumn of 1940 when the United States was still a neutral country. Over the several months the screenplay was written, the U.S. moved closer to war. As a result, scenes were rewritten to reflect Americans' more realistic view of the war. For example, the scene where Mrs. Miniver confronts a downed German pilot in her garden was made more confrontational in each revision. Originally, the film was to be shot at MGM Studios in Denham, England, but due to the difficulties of the war, it was switched to Culver City, California. Following the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor that brought the U.S. into the war, the garden scene was refilmed to reflect the tough new spirit of a nation at war. The key difference was that in the new version of the scene, filmed in February 1942, Mrs. Miniver was allowed to slap the pilot across the face. The film was released 4 months later. Wilcoxon and director William Wyler wrote and rewrote the key sermon scene the night before it was shot. The speech made such an impact that it was used in essence by President Roosevelt as a morale builder, and part of it was the basis for leaflets printed in various languages and dropped over enemy and occupied territory. Roosevelt ordered the film rushed to the theaters for propaganda purposes. The sermon dialogue was reprinted in Time and Look magazines. At the end of it, it said, "The U.S. needs your help," like buy war bonds, basically. So this was nominated for 11 Academy Awards, won Best Picture and Best Director, nominated for Best Actor for Walter Pidgeon, won Best Actress for Greer Garson, nominated for Best Supporting Actor for Henry Travers, 2 nominations for Best Supporting Actress, so actually 12 nominations total, for Mae Whitty and Teresa Wright, who won. Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Cinematography, Black and White, Best Film Editing, Best Sound Recording, and Best Special Effects. Okay, so I had to stop recording for a while. So now I'm going to see if I can remember where I left off. Okay, I left off with the Oscar nominations. So this one was pretty good. I was a bit distracted while watching it, but it was, compelling enough to keep my attention. And I really, everybody was really good. Greer Garson was very good. Walter Pidgeon, not in it a lot, but he was good as well. Teresa Wright was very good. So that, their Oscar wins were deserved, I feel. So I gave it 4 stars. It was not my favorite movie of this round. That was Yankee Doodle Dandy, which I gave 4.5 stars. I gave Mrs. Miniver, The Pride of the Yankees, and The Talk of the Town all 4 stars. I gave The Pied Piper and Wake Island 3.5. And I gave King's Row, Random Harvest, and The Magnificent Ambersons 3. So a pretty good round. Like I said, 3.6 as an average. That's not bad. I won't go too much further into any of this. There's a lot of information in the Wikipedia, but I'll just say that I enjoyed this one a lot. And we'll move on to the next one. So the next one is a snubbed movie for 1942 called To Be or Not to Be. And that is available on HBO. So I should be hopefully able to watch that this weekend and finish out 1942. Then we go back to 10 movies for 1943. So 10 movies plus a snubbed movie. 11 movies between me and December 31st. And if I can do that, I will have reached my goal. I've got about 40 days to finish 11 movies. So I've certainly watched 10 movies in less time. So hopefully I can do it again. That's it. See you next time.